For 40 years, he was adored by Hollywood. They are now fleeing. Richard Dreyfuss's head was struck by an ashtray thrown by Bill Murray. On set, he brought Lucy Liu to tears. He kissed a young woman without her consent after trapping her beneath his body. There was more than one horrible day. No one dared to discuss the decades of abuse. He caused Disney to cancel a $20 million film. It was 20 years before he spoke to his closest buddy again. Finally, the truth is out, and it's far worse than anyone could have predicted. On September 21, 1950, Bill Murray was born in Evanston, Illinois. His father sold timber, while his mother worked in a postal department. With 8 siblings, Bill grew up in the Chicago suburb of Wilmette. The house was usually a little disorganized, packed and noisy. Perhaps that's where his sense of humor began to develop. It was the type of setting where you had to speak up to be heard. His Irish Catholic ancestry dated back to Ireland's counties of Cork and Galway. His life was heavily influenced by his faith and family, but tragedy struck when he was just 17. Diabetes-related problems claimed his father's life, leaving Bill without the man he most admired, and the family without a father. Bill found solace in reading about American heroes like Davy Crockett when he was a youngster. In order to pay for school, he also worked as a golf caddy. He started analyzing people in a way that would eventually appear in his comedy during those long hours on the golf course. He enrolled in a pre-med program at a college in Denver after graduating from high school. However, something felt off. He quickly left school and returned home since he had no interest in becoming a doctor. He received an honorary degree from the same university years later, mostly for his cultural influence rather than his academic achievements. Something that may have destroyed everything occurred about this time. Bill was caught for attempting to smuggle about 10 pounds of marijuana into Chicago's O'Hare Airport on his 20th birthday. A search resulted from his jest to a fellow traveler that he had a bomb in his suitcase. Instead of going to jail, he was placed on probation, but the experience made him re-evaluate his life. After then, comedy came into play, marking a drastic change. Brian Doyle Murray, Bill's older brother, was already active in the Chicago comedy scene. Bill accepted his invitation to join the Second City, a renowned comedic group that is renowned for beginning successful careers. Everything would alter with that choice. Bill received training at Second City from Del Close, a legendary comedian. Actors were urged by Close to be bold, strange, and honest. He helped Bill hone his distinctive deadpan delivery. He discovered how to add humor to even the most serious situations. His future work would be centered around that aesthetic. He was pushed too far by a heckler during one performance. According to the narrative, after breaking the man's arm, Bill bought him a beer and took him to the hospital. He brought that type of crazy enthusiasm to the stage. Bill relocated to New York City in 1974. Thanks to John Belushi, he was invited to participate in the National Lampoon Radio Hour, a radio comedy program. Future stars Dan Aykroyd, Gilda Radner, Chevy Chase and Harold Ramis were all part of the cast. Back then, they were all strangers attempting to make each other laugh. It was a close-knit community that served as a springboard for something far larger. However, Bill took an odd detour before arriving to NBC's Saturday Night Live. He was cast in another program in 1975, Howard Costel's Saturday Night Live on ABC. The host of the nighttime variety program was a sportscaster with no experience in humor. Despite the show's rapid failure, Bill, his brother Brian, and Christopher Guest got experience on television. When NBC debuted its Saturday Night Live, they made fun of the ABC program by claiming that its cast wasn't prepared for primetime. The joke endured. In 1977, Bill took up Chevy Chase's position on NBC's Saturday Night Live. It was a difficult performance to do. Viewers were dubious. His initial sketches were unsuccessful. Additionally, there was tension behind the scenes. Just before the event began in 1978, Chevy and Bill got into a violent altercation backstage when Chevy returned to hosting. He was described as a middling talent by Bill. Soon after, they had to perform together. Their animosity would fester for years. Nevertheless, Bill persevered and produced some of the most enduring characters on the program. Nick the Lounge Singer, a corny nightclub performer who performed well-known songs with absurd assurance, was one of his biggest hits. With its fictitious lyrics, his rendition of the Star Wars theme went on to become famous. That persona encapsulated all that was unique about Bill. Strangely genuine, dry and ridiculous. He was very close to Gilda Radner throughout his stint on Saturday Night Live, both on and off screen. Their real-life relationship reflected the highs and lows of the geeky youngsters they portrayed in a recurrent comedy. They frequently quarreled, occasionally in front of the actors. Beneath it all was genuine affection. Bill once claimed that Gilda was the only one who could make him laugh. Sometimes she would physically urinate herself, and other times she would laugh so hard that she would flee the room. Although their relationship ended, Bill was deeply affected by her passing years later. He never forgot her. Bill received an Emmy for his writing when he was on the program. It provided him with the legitimacy he required to make his Hollywood debut. Before long, he was starring in films including Ghostbusters, Stripes, Caddyshack and Meatballs. In a world of larger, louder entertainment, his dry, quirky wit was a standout. He learned timing, character development, and how to make people laugh without trying too hard from his experience on Saturday Night Live. Years later, he would return to SNL for its 50th anniversary and win another Emmy, this time for drama. With the support of other cast members from all generations, he performed as Nick the Lounge Singer once more. He later acknowledged that while viewing the tribute movies, he had shed 3 tears. He was reminded of the beginning that night. Meatballs, a short film released in 1979, marked the beginning of Bill Murray's career in film. No one anticipated it to achieve much, since it was a cheap comedy shot in Canada. However, an odd event happened when it was released in theaters. It got quite popular. It began in a small number of Toronto theaters but quickly became quite profitable. It quickly swept over North America, attracting millions of people. It provided Murray his first major film role, and went on to become the most successful Canadian film at the time. His easygoing, sardonic manner was well liked by everyone, and it soon became his signature. Even Reitman, the director of Meatballs, benefited from this movie as well. It would not be the final collaboration between Murray and Reitman. Murray also collaborated with actor and writer Harold Ramis around this period. They collaborated on some of the most popular comedies of the early 1980s, including Ghostbusters, Caddyshack, and Stripes. They were an ideal group. Murray had a knack for conveying humor, while Ramis had a keen sense of humor. Ghostbusters, a zany comedy about scientists who pursue ghosts, was their biggest hit, and a global sensation in 1984. However, Murray's success wasn't always straightforward. He wanted to try something different that year. He had read The Razor's Edge, a somber book, and had strong feelings about making it into a film. Murray struck a bargain, but the studio wasn't sure. Only if they paid for The Razor's Edge would he be a star in Ghostbusters, and so they did. However, the audience didn't relate to it when it was released. Critics had mixed opinions about the film, and it didn't earn money. Some claimed that playing a dramatic part was beyond his capabilities. His performance struck a deeper chord with others. Still, he was deeply affected by the setback. Murray then vanished from the public eye. He spent time with his family, traveled around Europe and studied philosophy and history. Murray needed a vacation, but it was an odd choice for someone who had just shot to fame. He avoided big-budget movies for years. The reaction wasn't what he had planned for when he eventually returned with Ghostbusters 2 and Scrooge. Though they didn't generate as much money as anticipated, many enjoyed the films. He found himself appearing in poorly received films during the start of the 1990s, comedies such as The Man Who Knew Too Little and Larger Than Life. Studios started to question if he could still support a movie. Murray became increasingly estranged from Hollywood around this time. The way things operated behind the scenes didn't sit well with him. He had no interest in scripts, because he didn't want to again play the same parts. He eventually made an odd move. he completely ceased utilizing managers or agents. As a result, even for large studios, he became difficult to contact. He acknowledged that in order to locate the appropriate parts, he had grown picky and nearly lazy. He made a new attempt in 1990. Quick Change is a brilliant heist comedy that he co-directed, where he played the lead as well. It was praised by critics who called it one of his most astute performances. The box office wasn't kind though. The movie's lackluster box office performance only confirmed Murray's suspicion that Hollywood was no longer the right place for him. However, in 1993, Groundhog Day arrived. The timing of the film was perfect. It was an odd and humorous story. Murray had the opportunity to reveal a more profound side as a guy trapped in a recurring reenactment of the same day. During filming, he and director Harold Ramis had a lot of arguments. On the tone, they couldn't agree. Ramis wanted it to be light, but Murray wanted it to be more contemplative. They stopped talking altogether because of the extreme tension, and they wouldn't speak for more than 20 years. All that friction, though, might have been beneficial. Critics praised Murray's nuanced performance. The popular film served as a reminder to the world of his exceptional talent. For him, Groundhog Day was the turning point. It demonstrated that he was more than just a comedian. Later on, it paved the way for more challenging parts, such as Lost in Translation, where he displayed even greater emotional nuance. He would be nominated for an Oscar for that film. In retrospect, Bill Murray's journey through the 1980s and beyond wasn't straightforward. He experienced both great success and difficult setbacks. He chose to forge his own path instead of following the typical path to fame, taking calculated chances and backing off when things didn't feel right. Bill Murray had no intention of making a comeback. He wasn't trying to prove himself or win accolades. However, an unforeseen event in 1998 would alter the course of his career. Wes Anderson, a young filmmaker, happened to cross his path. Anderson had unsuccessfully attempted to cast Murray in his debut film, Bottle Rocket, a few years prior. Rushmore followed. After Anderson distributed the script, Murray managed to contact a Disney executive's office within a week. Anderson just so happened to be in the same office at that precise moment. That phone conversation sparked a meeting, and shortly after, they met in person in Los Angeles. Murray treated the entire team to steak, took over the bar downstairs, and danced. He was in not just on board. He also didn't request a large salary. Murray instead accepted the lowest pay imaginable, which was only $9,000, due of his faith in the screenplay. He said it was about holding on to kindness even when life is painful. That stuck with him, and it showed. His performance in Rushmore revealed a side of him that audiences hadn't seen before. Thoughtful, quiet, emotionally raw. Anderson would subsequently name him the godfather of that picture. For Murray, Rushmore marked a turning moment. Until then, he was largely recognized for being hilarious, the man from Ghostbusters and Groundhog Day. But he wanted more. He sought parts that were deeper. With Anderson's aid, he discovered them. In The Royal Tenenbaums, Murray played a guy so emotionally locked down, he scarcely appeared alive. In The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, he was an underwater adventurer on a weird mission to chase a shark that had slain his friend. Somehow he made the character feel both fierce and absolutely vulnerable. That mix between comedy and tragedy became Murray's new strength. By 2004, Murray was one of Anderson's most trusted performers, right alongside Owen Wilson and Angelica Houston, and their partnership continued expanding. Murray went on to appear in 10 of Anderson's films, over more than 20 years. Each time he brought something different, sometimes broken, sometimes pleasant, always unexpected. Behind the scenes, the bond between them was developing. At a film presentation in Berlin years later, Murray commented about how far Anderson had gone since Rushmore. He acknowledged Anderson's work with producer Steve Rails, which began in 2007, for helping Anderson explore his artistic limitations. Over time, Murray didn't require much direction. If anything wasn't clear, he'd just ask. But most of the time he trusted Anderson entirely. That trust ran deep. When Anderson moved into animation with Isle of Dogs, Murray didn't hesitate. He joined in. Even in a voice part, he preserved that same fire, that same tone that made their live-action films so special. And when Anderson began work on a new project in 2024, Murray joined on instantly. No storyline information needed. Their artistic teamwork drew attention from the outset. After Rushmore, Murray won Best Supporting Actor at the Independent Spirit Awards, and reviewers throughout the country followed suit. He even received a Golden Globe nomination. And years later, the film was picked by the Library of Congress for preservation, a measure of exactly how much influence it had. Critics recognized something exceptional in that performance, something fresh. One suggested Anderson had been clever not to make it overly sappy. Another admired how much heart Murray gave the narrative, even as he maintained it funny and smart. Together, Murray and Anderson transformed each other's careers. Anderson established his spot as a one-of-a-kind director, and Murray, once simply the hilarious man, became something more. A well-acclaimed actor who could hurt your heart while making you laugh. Bill Murray was originally best known as the wisecracking buffoon from movies like Ghostbusters and Groundhog Day. But everything changed in 2003 when he took on a calm, introspective part in Lost in Translation. He played Bob Harris, an old actor stranded in Tokyo, shooting whiskey ads and wondering what went wrong with his life. It was a weird and lonely place, yet in that new setting, he met someone who understood him. The picture didn't contain dazzling action or loud humor. It was all about silent moments, small stares, and the sense of being lost, not only in a city, but in your own life. The movie was created on a minimal budget, yet turned into a great smash. Critics couldn't stop admiring Murray. They thought he conveyed so much emotion without speaking much at all. Just a glance or a pause says everything. It wasn't the type of performance people anticipated from him, and that's what made it so compelling. It gave him his first and only Oscar nomination for Best Actor. For Murray, this wasn't simply a terrific part, it was a turning moment. As awards season rolled in, Murray became the frontrunner. He won the Golden Globe, he won the BAFTA, he won over most of the reviewers. It appeared like the Oscar would be his too. But on the big night, something unexpected happened. The prize went to Sean Penn for Mystic River. Murray subsequently said he was astonished. He had won every other prize, so he believed the Oscar was a sure thing, but in hindsight, he perceived the loss differently. He said it taught him something. How simple it is to get caught up in wanting more, even when you believe you don't care. That night reminded him not to pursue prizes. Even without the Oscar, Murray didn't slow down. He continued picking roles that mattered to him. Not simply ones that paid well, or offered celebrity. In Broken Flowers, he played a father who gets a letter indicating he could have a son. That sends him off on a trip to find out the truth. It was a quiet picture, laced with melancholy and humor. Then in St. Vincent, he portrayed a grouchy old guy who ends up being a hero in a little boy's life. These positions were diverse, yet they shared one thing. They demonstrated how deep and human Murray could be, even when he was portraying someone rough around the edges. He started working largely with filmmakers that knew how to employ his approach, individuals like Wes Anderson and Jim Jarmusch. They realized what others had missed for years, that Murray could be more than amusing. He may be genuine. In 2014, Murray made a stunning comeback to television. He appeared in Olive Kitteridge, silent miniseries on HBO. He wasn't in it for long, but his character as a widower, attempting to connect with someone fresh, left a tremendous effect. It was so outstanding that he won an Emmy. For someone who started on Saturday Night Live, then walked away from TV, it seemed like going full circle. But this time, he reappeared as someone the crowd viewed differently. Someone deeper, more seasoned, more respected. Part of what makes Murray so intriguing today isn't just the parts he selects, it's how he picks them. He doesn't have an agency or a management. He doesn't do business the Hollywood manner. If a director wants to work with him, they have to discover a special phone number, leave a message, and hope he checks it. He could call back in a week, he might not. Some have complained they've lost out on casting him because they couldn't reach him in time. But to Murray, that's the point. He doesn't want to be hunted. He wants to be fascinated. He jokingly joked that if your script is good enough, you'll find a way to contact him. That's how he keeps in control, by keeping the world at arm's length, and only going forward when something genuinely moves him. It's not about being tough, it's about safeguarding what matters. The job, the reason behind it, and the ability to say no. Bill Murray may have started as the humorous man who always had a punchline, but now he's something more. He's become a symbol of what it looks like to develop, to take chances, and to care genuinely about the tales you tell. Bill Murray isn't only a renowned actor. He's something closer to a walking myth. Over the years, he's fashioned himself into a kind of legend, not just for his movies, but for the way he comes into people's lives, does something unusual or entertaining, and then leaves like nothing happened. One of the most talked about stories goes back to roughly 2010 in Times Square. A man was enjoying McDonald's fries when Murray suddenly came, took 2 fries without asking, and calmly assured him, "No one would ever believe you." Then he vanished into the crowd. That one statement became his hallmark for these situations. He stated that previously, after covering a stranger's eyes from behind, after popping up out of nowhere, then suddenly gone. It's like he's in on a joke, the rest of the world only hears secondhand. Bill Murray has long been one of Hollywood's most recognizable performers, but behind the scenes many others tell a different story. Some claim he was witty and clever, others say he was hard to work with. One of the most surprising stories came from Richard Dreyfuss. They were filming What About Bob in 1991. One night, Dreyfuss gave Murray a script edit. He stated Murray had been drinking. Instead of reading it, Murray got up in Dreyfuss's face and said, "Everyone hates you. You are tolerated." Dreyfuss stated it became worse. Murray snatched up a hefty glass ashtray and flung it at him. Luckily, it missed. Years later, Murray denied throwing it at Dreyfuss. He stated he flung it toward the ceiling, but the film's producer Laura Ziskin backed up Dreyfuss's claim. She alleged Murray once broke her sunglasses, threatened to throw her across a parking lot, and even flung her into a lake. Lucy Liu has her own narrative. From the Charlie's Angels set in 2000, she claimed Murray used language that was inappropriate and unacceptable. It happened after Murray penned fresh lines and handed them out to the team without alerting anyone. Liu informed him that wasn't his job. That's when, according to those on site, Murray said something insulting like, "I gave you extra lines. Look who you're in with. Your TV. This is the major league." Liu didn't remain silent. She swore at him and kept her position. After that, Murray didn't come back for the sequel. Years later, Drew Barrymore complimented Liu for not allowing herself be degraded. Gina Davis also had a terrible incident while filming Quick Change in 1990. She stated Murray shouted at her in front of a crowd because she was late. She also mentioned a situation during her audition. It still bothers her. Murray took out a massage gadget. He named the thumper and insisted on using it on her. She replied, "No," again and again, but he continued pressing. No one else in the room stopped him. Later, on the Arsenio Hall program, Davis stated Murray groped her arm on television and even tried to pull down her dress strap. At the time, she tried to laugh it off, but looking back, she termed it dreadful. In 2025, when asked about her tales, Murray branded them absurd and that people were attempting to make him appear like a monster. But one of the longest and darkest confrontations was between Murray and Harold Ramis, his longtime friend and partner. They had created successes like Ghostbusters and Stripes, but everything changed on Groundhog Day. They argued about the tone of the picture. Murray wanted it deep and meaningful. Ramis wanted it hilarious. The fighting grew fierce. At one point, Ramis even grabbed Murray by the collar and shoved him against a wall, something utterly out of character for him. They stopped conversing after that. Murray would contact him late at night to dispute about the writing, then vanish when Ramis tried to answer. They didn't communicate for 20 years. Ramis was sad. They only communicated again immediately before Ramis died in 2014. Then in 2022, another terrible incident occurred. Murray was filming Being Mortal, a movie directed by Aziz Ansari. According to rumors, Murray got too close to a much younger staff member on site. They were near a fake bed when Murray reportedly went on top of her and kissed her through their COVID masks. She stated she was afraid. She couldn't move due of his weight. Another individual witnessed it happen and also filed a report. The studio stopped everything off immediately away. Production halted. The film never recovered. Murray eventually offered his side of the tale. In a 2025 interview, he claimed he thought it was humorous. He stated he'd done the mask kissing thing before and people laughed. He stated the woman wasn't a stranger. They'd had lunch a couple times. He didn't believe it was serious. Even now he says it still seems foolish to him, but he still confesses he thinks about it regularly. At the same time, he feels he was handled unfairly. He stated he got roasted by the press. Murray ended up settling with the woman later that year. Reports indicate it was over $100,000. Still, the harm was done. The film was cancelled. The whole cast and crew lost their chance to finish it. Years of planning and millions of cash were gone. Even now, Murray thinks the whole affair was misconstrued. He blamed what he called pre-existing conditions, though he didn't define what that meant. He also questioned Disney's harsh restrictions, stating they were harder than other countries. Some interpreted that as an attempt to transfer the blame. Others said it demonstrated he still didn't comprehend why his acts caused so much hurt.